Welcome back on the AM show, and here we are. We're going to be talking about our economy, the financial situation of the country. And initial government debt is said to have been restructured by 259 billion cedis. That was the estimate then. Government scaled that projection down to 137 billion cedis as the debt owed. Now, unsuccessful with this under the DDEP, government eventually succeeded with 87 billion cedis under that arrangement, leading to the bailout. But guess what? Government is now back seeking to restructure the shortfall in the DDEP, and that's the difference between 137 and 87 billion Ghana cedis, leaving out some odd 50 billion Ghana cedis. There's a pushback from the banks, which are saying, we've had enough. We've had it out to our eyebrows when it comes to these situations. Pensioner bondholders are also saying, look, we ought to be excluded from this. You excluded us the first time. If you try bringing us back onto this renewed effort, we're going to picket your ministry again. Here we ask, what is happening with our financial situation in the country, our financial institutions, and what impact will this have on the trust of people when it comes to banking? Well, joining me in the studio, Isaac Kofi Ajay, data analyst, or should I say senior data analyst? Senior data analyst here at Joy News. Yeah, I've given you Maboa Paso. Sir Data Analyst. Sir Data Analyst. And we also have joining the conversation Dr. Edu Anani Entry. He is convener for the pensioner bondholders grouping as well. I'll start in the studio with Kofi Ajay, but something interesting I just want to bring in, because we've premised this conversation on partly on the graphic, Stanbic breakfast meeting from yesterday, and earlier during the news review we're talking about this. Eva Menz, the chief director at the finance ministry. Did you listen to her yesterday?
I did.
I was honestly, you know me, I don't hide my sentiments. I don't pretend. I don't sugarcoat it. I was irked. I was annoyed by some of what she said. Yesterday, I had a long day, which ended very late. And I had to go somewhere with someone at some point. Now, the person got a bill, and I decided I like doing that. I took a look at the bill, what the person was going to pay. It was 493 cedis that the person had to pay. Do you know that the tax component was over 100 cedis?
Yes.
Over 100 cedis in taxes.
And you know what?
For something that is, so the real bill was 300 and something, and taxes alone led to that. And they come and tell us what?
Exactly. So what government is doing now is that if you buy an item, which is, let's say, 400 cedis, NHIL, whatever, COVID, whatever they calculate, they will add it to the initial cost. And
sum it up.
That cost, and then now tax you VAT.
Of 15%.
So the question is, the VAT must be applied. How is a tax value added that you want to add the initial tax amount to how much I'm supposed to pay, then you come back to tax me?
I know you will not call it that, but you know what I will call it? Thievery. It's not taxation, it is thievery.
In fact,
because these taxes are inhibitive. Now it's getting up to, it's beyond the eyebrows. You are basically drowning.
You go to the malls, you buy pizza, you buy whatever, and you look at the bill. The real amount plus the tax component
it's exorbitant.
It's a headache.
And looking at where our economy is, and you're taxing people into the ground. Yeah. So when I listened to Eva Menz, and it's good I was not at that function, because I would have, issued a riposte to what she said. I may have said things that people in government would really not like.
Presidents were not happy, and you saw the number of pensioners who were there yesterday. In fact, that was the first time at the graphic Stanbic business meeting that I had seen that number of pensioners, react, because they came there for solutions. You ask them to save for, days like this. They do save, they buy bonds. They are ready to cash in, and then you do this to them by restructuring and now rolling out a new debt restructuring, or what you are calling a reopening of the DDEP. Then they should be worried. How should they pay their medical bills? How should they take care of their kids? How should they, foot their rent and other, expenditure? On top of this, they buy things and you are taxing them, you are giving them high VATs, and if you look at what you buy and how much you are paying as tax, then it becomes a headache, Ben.
A big headache. But just walk us through this renewed DDEP and everything in between. Already the banks are saying, look, Charlie, make you don't even start. Don't start this again. Look, the banking sector crisis, then the supposed cleanup.
Yeah.
Look at what the banking sector has gone through over the last how many years? Cleanup, DDEP. Now another DDEP.
Cleanup in 2018, DDEP in 2022. I mean, that's a very short period to accommodate such
shocks, basically.
In fact, the banking sector cleanup cost us about 25 billion Ghana cedis, and we are still paying that loan. And you've now restructured. The first DDEP that took place, it was the banks, the commercial banks, insurance companies, individuals, and even Bank of Ghana that came in to save, the finance ministry, or let me say the government, from that unsustainable debt levels. But let's look at the current DDEP reopening. They have decided to call it reopening. But per our checks, this will be the third round of the DDEP, because
third round,
because the first one had to do with that 97 billion Ghana cedis that they wanted to restructure. They got about 80% of it. The second one was when they invited IPPs, remember, and they invited those who had dollar-denominated bonds but are still in our local space. They invited pension, the trustee funds, and all of those. That was the second part. This very one, which they are saying is the reopening, basically calling all other local bondholders to say that if you did not have the chance to participate in the first one, we are giving you another chance to participate. The target is around 13 billion Ghana cedis, and this will include ESLA, DACHE, and the GOG bonds. But I would like to say, to tell you what the IMF has to say about debt restructuring and what you have to do when you are doing it the first time. Ben, it says, handle it with care. You have to handle debt restructuring with care. And I love this quote from the IMF paper that says that debt restructuring is like performing a surgery. You only do it when it is necessary, and you avoid it when it will bring you more harm than good. At the point where we are, we have to ask ourselves, is this bringing us more harm than good? The third one is that cast your net wide and be clear and transparent. This is not coming from me, this is coming from the IMF. Why are we bringing this up? You know, the initial target of 137 was reduced to 97 billion Ghana cedis.
Right.
The finance ministry gave explanation why.
Was it 87 or 97?
97. 87 was the actual amount that was restructured. The target was 97.
So it was 40 billion short, and now it actually became 50 billion short at the end of it.
Exactly. Now, the finance ministry gave reasons why they had to reduce the initial amount from that 137 to 97. First, they say they allowed some people to convert their bonds to treasury bills. Who are those people that were given that privilege to convert bonds that we are all supposed to restructure? Some people were given the chance to convert them to T-bills, which means they are cashing in at the moment, because if you look at the T-bill rate, it's very high.
Exactly. And we had even heard that, of course, those walking the corridors of power, or who may have, had hinted some people who had conducted speedy withdrawals,
In fact, the IMF says that it's in the IMF statement.
It's in the IMF statement.
It says that do not allow people to use their political power or influence to exempt themselves from the collective debt restructuring.
But from what we hear, that happened. And we also know that the politicians themselves,
yes, that's the question we have
bought a lot of these bonds. So who are those?
People who were given the chance to convert their bonds to treasury bills.
In other words, if I get what you're saying clearly, we are all supposed to suffer. They told us we are all in this, we are in this together.
Burden sharing.
Right? Yeah. But apparently, we were not in this together, because some people were not in this.
Absolutely.
They didn't feel the pinch.
Absolutely. They did not give details of those who were given that opportunity to convert their bonds to. In fact, how is that even possible? How is that even possible when you are calling for burden sharing, and at a certain point you are telling us that even the target is not enough? How then do you allow close to, the space was around 40 billion Ghana cedis, including those who are allowed to convert their bonds to treasury bills and those who were given exemption? The finance ministry said that there were some people or some creditors who were not eligible to participate in the domestic debt exchange program and so were excluded. And as we speak now, Ben, we have about, I think, 4 or 5 loans or bonds that will be maturing just September 2023, this month. Yesterday, or 2 days ago, that was 18th September, we had 114.9 million Ghana cedis worth of bonds that matured that day. 25th, 62.8 million cedis. 28th, 284.9 million cedis. In total, just September 2023 alone, we have about 462.6 million Ghana cedis worth of bonds that are supposed to mature, and people are supposed to recoup their money, get their principals and coupons. But as it stands now, the last time that government settled that August 2023 coupons, I'm not sure they've done anything again. And the point has been made clear that the first domestic debt exchange that was done was not deep. And experts were saying that, I mean, you said the initial target was 137.
It reminds me, invasive surgery. It doesn't cut deeply enough. We have to cut deeper.
Absolutely. And that's where we are. Because if you don't do the first debt restructuring right, you end up doing it over and over again. There's a template for us to follow.
Right.
And that's the Jamaica template. We did not follow that template. We use our own unilateral ways to force certain things on people and say it's a take, or you have to take it by all means. We are giving you this offer, whether you like it or not, you have to take it. And that's not how debt restructuring actually works. It has to be bilateral. You need to engage.
Kofi, do you think
creditors are different
those in the finance ministry, and I'll be bringing in Dr. Eduanani shortly. Do you think those in the finance ministry are not aware of this? What irks me is what the likes of Eva, his Menz, or whatever the name is, will come and rub salt, and I'll have time for that this Friday. I'll take time and dissect some of those issues. So you should wait for what is coming. But with all of these, do you think they don't know these things? You're saying they do.
Of course they know. They know.
They do.
And they know that the first DDEP that was done was shallow, but they were just in a rush to say we were successful. And if you were successful, why are you doing a reopening? It's like a doctor who is done performing a perfect surgery, tells everybody that this surgery went well, 99.99%, and comes back and say, oh, I left this apparatus or whatever tool in the person. Oh, I feel I should have cut this part this way. If you do that,
I must perform the surgery all over again.
All over again. Or there's supposed to be some second round or third round. And if you do that in the financial space, that is deadly.
Let me bring in Dr. Eduanani. He joins the conversation. We'll also be joined eventually by Professor Lord Mensah of the UG Business School. So, Doc, thank you so much for staying with us on the live. Simply put, how do you feel about this new approach by government to supposedly rope you in one more time as far as the domestic debt exchange program is concerned?
Well, I think last
Hello, Doc?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you now. Please go ahead, sir.
Can you hear me? Okay. I think last Monday we sent a letter to the ministry and said we cannot be invited since we were exempted. That is a straightforward matter. Once exempted, you are exempted, and we don't have anything to do with this program again. The prospectus or whatever document that was used to
All right, so
government.
Doc, we're experiencing some challenges with the connection. We're experiencing some challenges with your Zoom connection. So please hold for us. What we're going to do is we'll try to reach you on phone instead. So please bear with us so that we can have a seamless conversation. Please, just do that favor for us. Let me come back into the studio ahead of also hearing Professor Lord Mensah. You know, Professor Godfred Bockman has stated categorically, you are spending like left, right, center, back, forward, top, bottom, as though there were no crisis.
Yeah.
Yet you want to, like I said, heap taxes upon people, and just now you're talking about another round of a DDEP. What does that signal?
I think yesterday Professor Peter Korte also spoke at the ISE program saying that, DDEP, it must not be done again, or it must not be done over and over again. Basically, he was just saying that if you have to do it, you need to do it once. But we need to tie this to the restructuring that we're talking about comes in two folds, the domestic side and the external side. We said the domestic side was successful. But mind you, the external creditors are watching what's going on in your domestic space. And I feel there's an external pressure for us to get things right, for us to cut deep within our space before we even go ahead to talk about external debt restructuring, because it's been months since we said we've had agreements in principle with China, with Paris Club. True. But we do not know the magnitude of haircut or the amount of restructuring or whether it will be forgiveness or whatever that these creditors are willing to.
The Chinese don't forgive.
They don't forgive. They only, increase your maturity period and then increase your coupon rate as well.
Same way a bank would deal with
absolutely
a loan facility.
Absolutely.
Okay, so I can't make my payments or things are really hard. Okay, so we'll reschedule. Yes. We may reduce it, but your tenure goes up.
Absolutely. And the same thing happened in Zambia, where external creditors were very angry. They were angry because as soon as Zambia heard about debt restructuring, the first people or the first group of people they targeted was the external side. And they said, no, we are not ready to give you that fiscal space that you need unless you go back to your domestic space.
Exactly.
It took Zambia more than a year, something that they thought they could just use 3 months or 6 months to do, because they did not do their homework, or they were asked to go back and do their homework.
In a way akin to what we started doing here. We felt within 2 months and it
we were giving people exemptions and allowing people to convert their bonds to treasury bills, where others were told that if you don't convert or if you don't participate in the restructuring, we have no other alternative. Why did you create alternative for other people to convert their bonds to are they better than those who decided to participate?
Right.
When we allow these people to go scot-free, then we'll go to Bank of Ghana and say, if you don't help us by giving us 50% haircuts, we can't meet the IMF program conditionalities. Then the Bank of Ghana also go ahead and forgive government a debt burden worth close to 40 billion Ghana cedis.
Now look at the state of the central bank.
Exactly. Yeah. So if you don't do certain things right, you end up touching certain parts that you are not supposed to touch. Because right now you've left your central bank with a negative equity. Your central bank has lost around $6 billion. And people are reading meanings into this. But if you had done things right, if you had followed due diligence, if you had been transparent and clear with creditors, all of these things would not happen. We would have had probably close to 90% or 99% participation if things were done the right way.
Obviously, there are lots of problems here. But let me come back to our guest. I'll come to you, Dr. Eduanani, but let me also acknowledge the presence of Professor Lord Mensah of the University of Ghana Business School. Prof, good morning.
Yeah, good morning. Now, if you can hear me loud and clear.
I can hear you loud and clear. And
our viewers out there and co-panelists institute, and then on the other side of
all right.
The call.
Right. Just hold for me briefly. Dr. Eduanani entry was on the floor and the connection was not good. Doc, so you were talking about this purported likelihood of an invitation. Please go ahead. Dr. Eduanani entry, can you hear me, sir?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes. Your take was truncated, so please go back to what you were saying.
So we have written to the Ministry of Finance that we couldn't be included in this reopening invitation because we are an exempted group. We have demonstrated and given reason why that cannot be the case.
What are your reasons?
You see, the security issuance is like this. You have a document which you have used to issue securities. That document holds valid until the securities are paid off completely. So after you have closed the offer and after you have done the settlement, you can't go back and change anything in that document. And what we are going to experience is that there are people who were exempted, we want to bring them in. That is not right. That is irregular. And we said that we believe there was, and they didn't apply their minds to that fact that there are exempted groups and they have put us inside. So we are just drawing the attention that that's not the right thing to do. And we had a press conference on that. I think what we also explained is that once you are part of the invitation, your coupons and maturity principals that will be due within the offer period will not be paid to you. The issuer, he has that right. He cannot pay you because the issuer wouldn't know whether you are tendering in your bonds or not. So until settlement day, the issuer will not know people who did not tender in their bonds and therefore pay them. So if your name is included, you can say, I am not going to send it. But the effect is that you won't get your coupons and principals within the offer period. So if this offer continues to be extended to about 2 months, you are going to stay there within that 2 months. You won't get anything that must be paid to you until settlement day. So they don't bring us in to use it to delay the payment of coupons and maturity to us. Fortunately, I think government has listened, government has seen that what it's intended to do was not right. Because yesterday we have started receiving payments of the due coupons and matured principals. We have 3 of them. We are monitoring 2. People have received payment in respect of 2. We believe the other other pensioners who are holding it will soon receive their coupons. So I believe the government has now realized that it was wrong.
Okay, so I understand that portion about believing that government now accepts it got it wrong, but have you been approached at all as far as this leg of the DDEP is concerned? Has there been any approach to you?
No, not whatsoever. It's like now, you put me inside, I know you are inviting me. If you start paying my due coupons and my credit cards, I know you have decided, you have abandoned your quest to include me in the invitation.
Okay.
And then we are also happy because individual bondholders who are not here, they are also receiving their coupons and principals. So they believe that means government has abandoned the idea of inviting pensioners and other individual bondholders.
Doc, okay, so just hold for me. We're still struggling with a connection. I don't know what it is, whether it's still on Zoom or via the phone line. But just hold for me. I'll come back to you. Let me bring in Professor Lord Mensah. You've heard Professor Bokpin, Professor Peter Quartey all talk about the fact that, look, as a government, you're not tightening your belt enough, yet you keep saying we're in this together. You keep heaping taxes upon the people left, right, center. And now here we are faced with another round of a domestic debt exchange program. What do you make of what you've heard so far on that beat?
True. I mean, we hear government talks about, scrapping of Article 71, 30% of the emolument and all that. I mean, clearly, we've not seen, how much the government is saving, out of this, decision. And the figure elephant on the expenditure side that government is supposed to look at. I believe for political reasons, they're not looking at that. One of them is the Agenda 111, promise that by hook or crook, they want to deliver, to Ghanaians, and some of them being duplications of, projects in certain, enclave. I would say that yes, indeed, government has not, thought of, reducing the big elephant on the expenditure side of the balance sheet. But let's look at, how, the finance minister and his team try to regularize, debt exchange, which is not normal, debt exchange.
You say it's not normal. Why do you think it's abnormal?
You cannot regularize. You can't use debt exchange as as a budget operation. No, you can't do that. The reason why I'm saying this is that if you look at globally, right, all debt exchange that has happened, they don't go to the market more than twice. Usually what happens is that the first debt exchange fails, then government calls you to go and do 8 assignments very well and come back with the second one. That is it. The reason why I'm saying this is that debt exchange, in as much as it has positive, impact on the economy, there are some negative aspects to the economy as well. Let's look at, you going to debt exchange and the investor confidence in your long-term bonds. Let's ask the finance minister whether the new debt, that was issued or that was swapped with the old one. I'm talking about the long-term debt, that the rate came to 9%, 10%, whether there has been trading on that side. Apart from the financial institutions who are dealing with long-term obligations, I don't think individuals are even interested in, and businesses are interested in those long-term bonds. So we should note that. We should note that debt exchange can reduce investor confidence. And as a result of that, we cannot operationalize it. We cannot regularize it every now and then and say we are coming to do debt exchange. After this issue, the next one, those waves of debt exchange must cease. We don't use that to manage the economy. When you do that, you try to hold up certain uncertainty, in the public financial space. And we all know very well that without the flow of finance to and fro from the government instrument, this government can run down. Not this government alone. We're talking about subsequent government to come. Other than that, a lot of work needs to be done. And so we don't prolong that exchange. You do it once, and then you gradually win back the investor confidence over time so that you can tilt the yield curve. As we speak now, look at the rate of, the way treasury bills rate are going up relative to the long-term instruments that are still low. And you can't manage economy with that. Economies are not managed under inverted yield curve. If I say inverted yield curve, a situation where the long-term instruments are having, lower rate than the short-term instrument. It's never done anywhere. You do it and then find a way. We've been in that situation before. As of that time, Mr. Setekwe, who was the finance minister, that was when he coined a term called smart borrowing, where he saw that the yield curve was inverted, and as a result of that, there's pressure on the economy. And then they started looking at long-term investment, from elsewhere. Unfortunately for this government, what is happening is that the government has been blocked from the international market, so external inflows has been a problem. So the only option available is to cut down your expenditure. Cut down expenditure, the big elephants on the expenditure side of your balance sheet, which for political reasons you are not ready to do it. So you keep on carrying, debt upon debt on short-term basis, and look at, the short-term.
So in other words, the government seems to be unwilling to really tackle that issue of the external debt situation. Look at the number of months we've been talking about it. Still nothing really to show from China and the other parties, external creditors. then you also say that, I mean, financially, economically, the things they are doing are not standard practice. They are, but why do you feel they are having to, you know, resort to this? Just because it's sowing the seed of pain on ordinary people. And now you've heard the banks are saying we can't do this again. Pensioner bondholders are saying don't even think of it.
Yes, of course, they know the economic repercussions, the financial impact on their balance sheet. You saw what happened to their balance sheet, the bank's balance sheet, you know, last year, 2022. Most all the banks across, you know, had a loss on their balance sheet. So effectively, it tells you that they cannot go further to absorb some of these shocks. And if a government is operating and you got to a point where you have what we call fiscal fatigue. Fiscal fatigue has set in because, one, you are not able to generate revenue as expected. Two, your tax, you know, ability to increase your tax has also, you know, gone down, because anytime you introduce tax, you've got into a saturated point where, you know, your citizens tend to complain because you keep on, you know, taxing the same, you know, people. At the end of the day, what you need to look at is your expenditure. Look at the big elephants, capital expenditure, which is one of the discretionary expenditures. Cut them drastically. Cut it drastically, and then see how much you can save from that side. This government's operations has always been revenue, how to mobilize funds. And you see, in economic management, mobilization of funds through issuing of, you know, debt and all those, and which becomes a cycle. And when it becomes a cycle, then you are heading towards more or less a situation where, if you are at a corporate level, you would have said, okay, declare bankruptcy, because your cycle of debt and how you're operationalizing it is not sustainable. Effectively, anytime government issues new debt, seem to attract, you know, higher interest. And that tells you that the investor confidence keeps on going down. And as a result of that, if for nothing at all, government, you should be, you know, wise enough to reduce, you know, your expenditure, which is the only, you know, indicator you have control over.
And it would appear, Prof, that the other indicator that they have some control over taxes, they are just heaping them on. So let me just walk you through this comment.
For taxes, we've got into a saturated point.
Right.
If you are increasing taxes and you are increasing it vertically without looking at the horizontal part of it, it becomes a problem.
And I shared, you know, an example earlier where yesterday someone got a bill, and I was right there, of 493 cedis. Prof, the taxes were well over 100 cedis. Taxes alone.
Yeah, that's
VAT,
more than 40%. We know it. I mean,
yes.
If you want to see a typical example, you go and buy any item at ShopRite, or you buy a fuel, pick the receipt and look at it. It's more than 40%. A typical Ghanaian, on daily basis, indirect taxes, you are paying more than 40%.
So I have a comment. Godwin Ajete Nahu says, Ben, when these guys come, okay, he's referring to yesterday's Stanbic breakfast meeting and some of the comments there about taxes. He says, here we are taxed to the neck. When they try to compare to the West, please ask them to compare the taxes we pay here. This person is in the West as well. He says, take our retail tax and compare it to the West. Take our energy tax, compare it to the West. Income tax, compare it to the West. Check the taxes on our fuel and compare it to the West. What are they talking about? Dr. Edu Ananientwi, so we've come to this point and your coupons, by and by, are getting settled. When are you expecting your next payment? And I guess since you've not been approached by the finance ministry yet, you are sitting pretty and hoping that there will be no call upon you to participate in this. But if the call came, what would be your group's reaction?
Principal that is also due. So, and other individual bondholders have also started receiving. Effectively, meaning that government has abandoned the idea of inviting pensioners and other individual bondholders to this reopening program. But this market thrives on information. If government has decided to do that, which of course by implication they have decided to do that, because if we were part, you couldn't receive your coupons and principal. But the market needs information. So if government has decided to do that, it is best for government to issue a statement and say, this reopening we have taken, it doesn't cover individual bondholders, both pensioners and non-pensioners. Then the market is calm. But if you don't announce it, not everybody will have that alert to say, well, the alert has come, so it means I've been excluded. So I plead with government to let the information flow. This market thrives on information. So let the information come. Tell the market that you have dropped the idea of including individual bondholders, be it pensioners or non-pensioners. You have dropped the idea of including them in this testing. Then the market will get some.
So in other words, you are waiting for a categorical statement from the finance ministry, clarifying from government, clarifying that individual bondholders in this next batch, you are still exempted. You will not be brought on board.
It is for the sake of market. The market needs information. So you don't do things and keep it to yourself, and for us to analyze and say by implication you have dropped that idea, you have abandoned that idea. No, it should not be by implication. By implication you have dropped, but let the market get that information that you have abandoned the idea of roping in all individuals, whether they are pensioners or non-pensioners, and as a result you have started paying them their coupons that are due and matured bonds. So that the market, we have to build back this market confidence. And when we introduce all these things into the market, we are taking down, completely down the confidence in the market, which we should be rebuilding.
All right. Thank you, Doc. Thank you so much for joining the conversation and sharing with us the insights you have. Definitely, he is saying government, rather than sit pretty and say, by implication, because we're paying you your coupons and all of that, you are exempted. Government should come out, the finance ministry should come out and say categorically, individual bondholders, especially as the pensioner bondholders, you are not a part of this, to send a signal to the market. Prof, to conclude with you, that market confidence seems to have been eroded. I've had a number of conversations with people this week, and some of them are very concerned about this second round, from the banking sector to others. That market confidence, where does it stand now, and what should government be doing? And finally, you do know that some, like has been mentioned, we had a conversion of bonds to treasury bills for some people before the debt exchange program struck, which would mean that, in other words, we are not in this together. A select few, whatever the number, faceless individuals got to convert. We know people in power are also bondholders. So how do you feel about that situation? Hello, Doc. Prof, you'd have to unmute. You have to unmute.
Yeah, so first of all, the market confidence is completely down. Now, let's look at what will bring down the market confidence. One is the way we've handled the debt exchange. This debt exchange is not something that you can use or you can regularize it for economic management. You can't do that. That is why all over, anytime a country is going through difficulty, debt exchanges are announced once, maximum twice. Usually the first one is more or less a failure, but the government may not get the buy-in of the people. And as a result of that, they go back, do the assignment, and come and issue a new one, which the people get to buy it. And then it goes on. And it goes on once and for all. Because government wants to have an advantage of reducing the burden on its balance sheet. By so doing, it has its own way of also reducing investor confidence. So you don't operationalize it and then keep on announcing it every now and then. I'm going through the debt exchange. At this time, we would have stop it and then look at how we can build back the investor confidence. That's why I mentioned earlier that at this time we should have had our yield curve correcting itself. And I was asking whether the government knows whether the bonds that were issued, the new bonds that were swapped, are people interested in it? That was the question I was asking. If people are not interested in it, it tells you that yes, the confidence is still not there. And as a result of that, whatever instrument you issue, it's going to attract higher rates. Of course, we're talking about risk-return trade-off situation here. If you want to know whether the investor confidence is low or high, look at treasury bills. Anytime government goes on the market to issue treasury bills, they seem to attract higher rate. Treasury bill rate keeps on going up. Effectively, it tells you that the confidence is down. Government is struggling to attract money from individuals and businesses. And so they have to do their assignment well. You know, in the public sector, it is difficult to measure risk.
Right.
We, in applied economics and finance, we usually proxy it. And one of the proxies, right, as we speak now in this country, is the finance minister's position, and then how he's trying to regularize, debt exchange. It's not something that you have to operationalize in managing economy. You go to the market once, you announce it, you come back, and then you use the time, correct, the system. You use the time, make sure that the investor confidence is won back.
Right.
Because government cannot run its budget without the people's investment.
So, Prof, we've run out of time.
The second one,
we've run out of time, so you have to do this very briefly for me on the second point.
Okay, so the second point, which you talk about the debts, and the treasury bill swap by few people, those who matter in the space. I mean, from where I sit, it's a bad practice because you cannot do selective kind of economic management where if you're doing debt exchange, you select few people or few businesses and you change, their position. So it's a bad thing to do, and that in itself has a way of dampening the spirit of a typical Ghanaian investment.
Prof, we're so grateful that you took the time to join us. Thank you so much for your time. Kofi, you have the final words.
Yeah. So whilst you were speaking, I was doing this illustration to demonstrate how we are actually performing our DDP. It's like we have a tank of water that we want to get rid of. We've opened a tap somewhere that it should go away, but we are filling it elsewhere with additional water. So we are doing DDP for us to get rid of our debt. We are also borrowing heavily from the treasury bill market. So what's happening is that government did that DDP somewhere, February. But if you look at the debt that has been accumulated just between February and April, it's around 7 billion Ghana cedis. So you are getting rid of the debt, but you are also adding more probably from the treasury bill market and other markets. But I am not surprised that government is doing this second round or third round. In the exchange memorandum, they state this clearly. And it says that this is the first exchange. It says treasury bills issued by the Republic and are certainly non-marketable securities are certainly not part of this exchange. And it says that such treasury bills and non-marketable securities may, however, be the subject of other exchanges and purchases by the Bank of Ghana, or by the government of Ghana from time to time.
I clearly remember we had a conversation.
Exactly, it is here. So people should not be surprised. If you sign on to the DDEP program, you should know that there is this clause in the Memorandum of Understanding that says that those who are buying treasury bills, you may not be part of this exchange, but you may be part of other exchanges. And this should even tell you that government is not hoping to do the DDEP once. There could be other DDEPs on the way. So I think this will.
Isaac Kofi Ajay, this one, we'll have more to say on this in in the other conversations. Isaac Kofi Ajay is a senior data analyst. I've added senior to him today. He's a top shutter. We also had Dr. Edu Anani Entry, convener, Pensioner Bondholders Forum, and Professor Lord Mensah of the University of Ghana Business School. Stay with us on the AM show. Still to come, we're going to be contemplating something on the political terrain, the latest Global Info Analytics survey, pointing to the dynamics as the MPP heads to that election of a flag bearer come November the 4th. What can we expect? What are the dynamics? That conversation up next on the AM show.